Hello. So one of the questions that we get a lot is regarding our background and how we came to the field of hypnotherapy, the mind, philosophy, and mysticism. The reason why this becomes relevant is because evidently we all function within the framework of certain assumptions and certain paradigms. Paradigms are worldviews, how you see the world. So students and clients oftentimes ask, where is some of this stuff coming from? And I think that's a relevant question. It's a good question and one that perhaps should be addressed. So just a little bit about how this journey took place. So what I'm about to tell you, of course, is just the way this journey took place in an external fashion. In other words, what were my quests or my endeavors in physical life? But in reality, it's difficult to convey to you what the inner struggle that the search for truth and higher understanding really entails. It's really an inner journey, and a journey that is not done. Of course, this is just an ongoing project. But to give you an idea of what the external journey has been like, after high school, I got into a program at the University of Minnesota, at the Institute of Technology in the Aeronautical Engineering program. I went to school there for 2 years, then I moved to Miami, Florida, and I finished a degree in mechanical engineering. Now, when I started my engineering schooling at the University of Minnesota, I recognized that the rigidity and the exactness of the engineering program needed to be somehow balanced by some sort of philosophical content. So at the age of 17, when I first went to college, I understood that engineering was going to teach me how to do something, but I wasn't going to learn in engineering school what should be done. I understood that that question was more of a philosophical question, not a technical engineering question. We can do this with engineering, but what should we do? And therefore, I started taking philosophy classes in my first year of engineering school. And that, at the age of 17, marked the beginning of kind of a dual life, a dual path in life. I continued studying engineering, graduated in 1989 with a degree in mechanical engineering from FIU in Miami, Florida. And in 1992, I graduated with a degree in philosophy from the same university. So I kind of kept both of those paths in parallel. The study of philosophy led me to the study of metaphysics, the mind, life as a whole, the human experience, and it also led me to the field of hypnotherapy, human suffering, how to alleviate suffering, and all of that. That became the path that brought me to hypnotherapy, and I'll tell you more about that. But remember that I sought the study of philosophy only as a hobby, sort of, to kind of balance my professional life as an engineer. That particular path led me to work as a design engineer, then go back to graduate school. I got a master's and a doctorate degree in biomedical engineering. I did some research. I taught for 2 years at the university, published a few papers, scientific papers in the area of cardiovascular mechanics, did some research on artificial heart valves, cardiovascular mechanics primarily, and the study of cardiovascular disease brought me to this understanding that emotions had a lot to do with diseases. As I'm nearing the end of my doctoral years at university, I'm teaching engineering, I'm doing research, I'm publishing papers, but also my philosophy background is kicking in. I'm doing further studies in parallel to this, in two separate routes. I'm doing further studies in the mystical traditions. I'm studying hypnosis, the mind, how repressed emotions have an effect upon the body. All of this in parallel to the scientific study of the etiology of cardiovascular diseases, where they come from. At some point, it became apparent that I was not on two parallel paths, but it was the same path. And in searching for the cause or the root of diseases, I needed to get deeper into this whole thing with the mind and emotions and repressed emotions and so forth. And that's when I decided to leave the university to start practicing hypnotherapy full time. People often ask me, how could you have made such a not a very smart decision. It was a pretty good job at university with all of the perks that come along with that kind of position. After all, it took me 14 years of schooling to get to the position, and I kind of decided to leave that behind to basically enter a field that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about the business of therapy, but anyway, that's what I felt called upon to do. And when I look back almost 20 years later now, I feel that it was a fantastic decision, even though I also look back and think, wow, that was kind of a risk, a big risk there. But anyway, that's what has happened. Hypnotherapy gave me the opportunity to explore a whole different side of life. I was able to go to conferences, read books, meet fascinating people, and I was able to infuse my practice of hypnotherapy with all of the engineering principles that I had learned at university. I was able to kind of understand the psyche or the mind from a more logical perspective, I guess, and that has been useful, at least to the several thousand people that we've been able to help over the years. Parallel to that, because of my background in teaching at university, I started teaching immediately. I started teaching what I had learned about philosophy, hypnotherapy, and mysticism. And in our school over here, we continue doing that several times a week. And many, many kinds of students come over to learn or to continue learning some of those subjects. And it's a fascinating ride. So education and therapy have been the two pillars of the work that we do here since the very beginning. So in hypnotherapy, we published a few papers, a few courses. We've done a little bit of what I'd like to think. So in hypnotherapy, we've been able to advance the art of hypnotherapy a little bit by talking to other therapists in conferences, publishing a few papers, and hopefully that has been useful, at least to a few people, what we have been able to learn from our experience here. So that's how our career in engineering kind of became a career in hypnotherapy. And I just wanted to address this because when people ask me how come I switched careers, my first response is always, I didn't switch careers. This is a natural progression to me. I was interested in the etiology, in the formation, in the causes of diseases, particularly heart disease, which has to do a lot with emotions, feelings, and the natural progression brought me to the mechanics of it in terms of the engineering of it, all the way to the philosophy of the subconscious mind, which allowed me to help some people avert some of these problems and resolve problems in other cases. So that's more or less the path through which I took.